Ladies and gentlemen, you are now watching and listening to Real Talk with Ronnie with your host, Ronald Lynn. All right, welcome back to Real Talk with Ronnie, ladies and gentlemen. To help us kick off the first episode of this season, I'm very happy to welcome back my friend, Alan Waters from the great state of Rhode Island, right?
That's right. From the
Rhode
great
Island.
state of Rhode Island.
It's a
up the
small
road,
state.
Up the road from you. Small state, right?
Small state, but a powerful state, right?
Very powerful.
All right, so Mr. Waters,
By
welcome
50
back.
miles. Yeah, thanks.
The last time you were on our show, you were running for Congress, right, in District 1 last year in 2022 against David Cicilline,
Was
right?
the Republican candidate,
Right.
Republican Party, running
right.
for Congress in the 1st Congressional District.
Right. So last year, that's what you were doing. This year is a little bit different change in story, right?
Why Absolutely. Don't you tell us? It's a big change.
Right. Why don't you tell us what you're doing this year?
Very good. Well, I ran for the United States Senate as a Republican in Rhode Island. I ran against Senior Senator Jack Reed in 2020. I ran against U.S. Representative David Cicilline in 2022. I was the endorsed Republican candidate in Rhode Island, and I got about 36% of the vote. But since that time, I have switched to the Democrat. I would give myself a black conservative Democrat. I'm running for the United States Senate. I was signed up for it. The next Senate race in Rhode Island is in 2024, and U.S. Senator Sheldon Whitehouse is up. But what's happened was U.S. Representative David Cicilline, Democrat, who I ran against in 2022, he decided to step down a few weeks ago because he's going to take a job at the Rhode Island Foundation. Nice, well-paying job. It's all public knowledge. And now it's an open seat, Ronnie.
Right. Now, just to sum this up a little bit, because I think throughout that, a little bit of that was kind of, broken up because of the connection.
Sure.
But to sum it up, Alan, you were running for Congress last year as a Republican, correct?
Yes, I was.
This year you were, you were originally running for U.S. Senate next year, right? So
exactly.
That's what you were doing. But then unbeknownst to everyone else, David Cicilline, the man who beat you last year, he decided to step down from Congress to take on a new job as I believe it's the CEO of the Rhode Island Foundation. And I read an article that this job pays very well, right? I think
public knowledge, about $650,000 a year. Sweet deal if you can get it.
Right. So $650,000 a year. That's a big increase from his congressional pay, which is I think it's around 175, right?
That would make sense at his level in time, in about that range.
Right.
But the current CEO was stepping down. Whatever knowledge was before the race, I just know that I ran the best I could, and he was 2 months in, and then he decided to step down.
Right. Okay. So when he announced that he was stepping down, you immediately decided to switch from running for U.S. Senate next year to run for U.S. Congress for the seat you were running for last year, this year, right?
Absolutely. I see that as a great opportunity. So I'll call my Senate run a pause. If I win the primary, I'll probably win the general election for the open seat. But if not, I hopefully would expand my brand a little bit more as a Democrat, especially in the cities and the urban communities from which I'm from.
Right.
And we'll see how it goes. But I'm running to win, and I think I have a great opportunity because many people are jumping in the race, especially Democrats, and who knows? So I'm hoping for some upset in the Democratic Party in Rhode Island. They need me. They need a moderate to conservative Democrat to help save the party, Ronnie, because the party's gone so left. They've chased away the moderates. They've chased away the conservatives. And I believe that I'm in a sweet spot because the traditional Democrats that are upset with the party, as well as the independents in a blue state like Rhode Island, I won't be representing Donald Trump anymore. I think that will be helpful. But also, I never changed my message. I'm the same guy. So I hope a lot of Republicans who get it will continue to support me and vote for me.
Right. So, in case anyone else missed it, the biggest change is that you are deciding to run as a Democrat this year, as opposed to a Republican, right?
Absolutely.
So my question to you is, and I guess is the most important question, is why have you switched parties?
Well, I'll tell you. When I was running for U.S. Senate in Rhode Island as a Republican, running for you as a U.S. representative as a Republican, I felt that my local party, but especially the national party, didn't give me any attention at all. No, I understand that it's a raise money to get recognition, but when you're running against the 2021 Trump impeachment manager, the person who put in the gun bill, I certainly have a license to carry a firearm in both Massachusetts and Rhode Island, Ronnie. So I really support the Second Amendment and all the other things. And they wouldn't even say my name. So wait a minute. I'm homegrown, fourth generation, born in Rhode Island, graduate of Providence Public Schools, University of Rhode Island, spent a good career as a financial consultant for a number of firms like Merrill Lynch and Charles Schwab, a family man, father of 5. I would think that that would have been worthy, but no, there was another open seat because we had the former mayor of Cranston, Rhode Island, Ronnie. His name was Alan, Allan Fung, was running, and he lost against Seth Magaziner. So the party put the whole bet on one race and didn't even put a side bet on me. So I said, you know what? I've carried the water. I'm a conservative type of guy. I can check off all the check boxes. And, they decided that they took a pass and gave David Cicilline a pass. So I said, you know what, Ronnie, I said, I'm not mad at him, but it was time to go. So it's not easy, but I'm not changing my ideology. And I found a great place, Ronnie, for a great fit. I label myself, and I think it's a good label, at least being in the Democratic Party. I consider myself a Rhode Island Blue Dog Democrat. And, the BlueDogDems.com, I intend to join their coalition, and I will work across the aisle, Ronnie, with Republicans when it makes the most sense, because we need to move America forward as well as my state.
Okay. Now, so, you literally and figuratively carried the water, given that your last name is
I
Water,
did.
right?
Waters was carrying the water.
Right.
And
so is this the first time in your adult life or in your life that you've become a Democrat?
I don't know when I was younger, sometimes when you're really not into politics, you're in your 20s, maybe your 30s, family man. I've always been a real active father guy. You take your shirt and tie off and go to your next job to keep feeding your family. So that may have happened. Mm-hmm. One time in Massachusetts, I was the first Republican. I live in Providence, Rhode Island, registered to vote here. I voted for myself against Jack Reed in 2020, and of course, against David Cicilline in 2022. But I also have a home on Cape Cod. I'm a native Rhode Islander, but somehow I ended up on the Cape. The town of Mashpee, for people, there's a lot of Cape Cod lovers where you live, so they know where it's at. And I was the first Republican running against Elizabeth Warren in 2017. But I knew I wasn't going to get on the ballot because there was just some Republicans there that had name recognition, money, etc. So for a moment, I decided to switch to the Democrat Party and run as a blue dog. I figured, hey, let me challenge Elizabeth Warren in their own party. But ultimately, I just switched back to an independent and tried to get on the ballot and did not. So for a moment, for those people who like to do some deep digging, I think I was a Republican or a Democrat for about 60 days.
Okay. 60 days. Now, so have you been welcomed into the Democratic Party with welcome arms, or switch, or
I thought I was just a nice classic kind of a Republican candidate, and I wasn't really welcome with open arms there. No, I'm not. but then I'm not trying to right now because Rhode Island, perhaps like New Jersey and other places, is pretty locked up by the establishment Democrats. They not only try to keep Republicans out, but they're going to keep out Democrats who aren't in the club. So I'm not in the club. But what I do have is grassroots. I live in Providence, Rhode Island, the West End neighborhood. When my family moved here in 1960, Ronnie, we might have been the only colored family, blacks, on the street at that time. Now it's probably 75, 80% Hispanics. There's some Africans here. I don't think there's any more white people on my street, but I live in the neighborhood I grew up with. I think the demographics great. And I also believe that I'm a man who speaks, although I'm conservative, I speak truth to power. And with that, I think I can catch the ears of people who in a city who votes 95% Democrat.
Mm-hmm. Well, that being said, right, the fact that you've been a Republican for most of your life and that you ran in the last statewide race, well, not a statewide race, but a federal office race as a Republican, right?
Yes.
How do you plan on how do you plan on convincing those Democrats to come over to vote for you? And it's not, I mean, it's understandable why a lot of those Democrats might feel a little bit wary about Alan Waters, right? He was just a Republican, now he's a Democrat. Why should we trust him?
Oh, very good. The reason why they should trust me is this. Right now, the Democratic Party is in trouble. They continue to be more and more of a socialist, left-leaning party. They use the word progressive. But there's a lot of traditional Democrats, people that could have been Republicans, but you know what? Without the hassle, they're here. I think I represent what I call myself. I'm a traditional Democrat. I'm a throwback Democrat. I think if people are thinking about people like John F. Kennedy, President Kennedy, and Carter, and Truman, in that sort of mold, let's go back to where we were. I'm doing America a service as well, Ronnie, because we need to pull the Democrat Party back towards the center. Because if we lose the Democratic Party, Ronnie, we lose America. It's all over.
Right.
And quite frankly, there's probably many of your listeners that feel they're already gone. But the answer is no, they're not. And then Massachusetts, I live in Rhode Island, but Massachusetts and Rhode Island have more independents than Republicans and Democrats combined. And so we have this great middle of people who would like to listen to a common sense solutions, Ronnie, traditional values, and also we need fiscal responsibility, because whether we're talking about the Democrat side or the Republican side, we're up to over $31.5 trillion of debt, and it seems like there's no adults in the room. I'll be one of those adults.
Okay. I think that's the same situation here in Jersey too. The unaffiliated, they outnumber the Republicans and the Democrats. So I mean, for all the people who say that New Jersey is actually a blue state, right? I think they're not taking into account the independent voters, because those independent voters have perpetually made or have kept our state sort of like a bluish, purplish kind of state, though,
Sure.
From time to time, we tend to elect a governor who is a Republican. We haven't had any U.S. senators that aren't Democrats, right, in recent memory, and I think that seems to be the case in Rhode Island too, right? But when it comes to
that's right. If we had, it's been a long time. I think the former Governor Chafee became Senator Chafee, and he was the old WASP Republicans that had a good hold on to the state for a while, but with all the shifting politics, they're still there. Because I look at, but yes, that's true, and occasionally we've had Republican governors. Now that said, is the state ready for change? And the answer is, well, you know what? Ideologically speaking, I'm a classical liberal, so the word liberal has been stolen a long time ago by the more socialist liberals, and so I think. I look well and feel balanced on either side of the fence. But most importantly, if we're talking about democratic issues and policies, we just need to do those with common sense. There's one thing trying to build as you know, they're trying to build those offshore, where they are, the offshore wind turbines off New Jersey, well, they're doing it off Rhode Island, but we need to do that with fiscal responsibility. We need not to try to take away fossil fuels too quickly, because our economy is built on that. And so, we don't want the left to bully the rest of America. We just if you got some great ideas, let's put them on a table and see how they can work with a common sense and fiscally responsible way. I'm that guy, and I think that's going to ring true with the state, because the problem is with the people that are getting ready to jump in the race in Rhode Island. I'm going to use the H word, and the H word is the hacks. Rhode Island is last in business, one of the last in business friendliness, in business taxation. If you look at the Tax Foundation, Rhode Island's a real laggard in corporate and personal taxation. Rhode Island's even rated number 51 in a survey by being the worst place to be a doctor. We got great health care. We're between Boston and New York, but the answer is because of all the other framework. And so, when I bring all those things up, Ronnie, people are going to say, you know what? We need somebody who's actually paying attention to that instead of some ideological things.
Okay, now speaking of ideological things, you mentioned that you would define yourself as a classic liberal, right? As a
classical liberal. Yeah,
right.
Absolutely.
How would you define that? What is a classic liberal?
Well, a classical liberal goes back a number of centuries, that different writings that put it together. But let's put it in a nutshell. I believe in individual freedom, individual liberty. I don't believe in collectivism. I don't believe in socialism. I don't believe in government control over our lives. And that means I believe in limited government, less expensive government, less intrusive government. Whether you're a Democrat or Republican, the government's getting too large. And as we know these days with the social media, we're in a real dangerous spot in America when we have some of our major police organizations working with social media and basically censoring the American people, et cetera. And it's not just all Republicans. That's the thing. I want to be able to tell the Democrats, when taxes get raised, we're going to pay more taxes. Are we getting the representation in Rhode Island and not for the kind of money that we have to pay? And look at with this one of these last bills, they want to add 87,000 new IRS agents, Ronnie. But you know what? The blacks and the poor are audited way more than the rich on a percentage basis, because the rich folks and I believe in the American dream. So keep going, rich people, keep going. But in the meantime, they have tax lawyers and people that can be in between them, where the poor are being audited more because they're low-hanging fruit. And is that what we want our government to do, to continue to harass the most weakest people? I'm a Democrat that's going to stand up for everybody, including the people that Democrats are supposed to say that they're standing up for, and that's the people who are in the weakest position in this country.
Okay. Now, the primary in Rhode Island, is it an open primary or is it a closed one?
It's an open primary. Well, whoever is running as a Democrat will have a primary. If an independent shows up, doubtful, but you never know, or someone who can actually be competitive.
No, I mean, my question is, can people who aren't registered Democrats vote in the Democratic primary?
No, they have to switch. So,
okay.
I'm hoping there's going to be a lot of sales to do, but hopefully, if the independents, they can go in and switch and be a Democrat and vote for me in the primary. And then, of course, if they're doing that in the general election as well. Right. And if you're a Republican, if you really wanted to do that, you'd have to switch and then switch back. But yeah, in the primary, only Democrats can vote for Democrats here.
Okay. Now, you mentioned before that one of the biggest reasons you're running as a Democrat is because you want to try to kind of be that voice of reason, right? You want to bring the Democratic Party back to the middle, right? Back to
sense, for right? America, not just for the Democratic Party, for America. Without a Senate Democratic Party, Ronnie, we're all in trouble. We're in trouble now. You can see what's been happening.
Right.
So, but I just believe, whether it's in New Jersey or in Rhode Island, that you still have those centered, centrist, moderate, even conservative people. Maybe they just don't like Republicans, but they still believe, in that center right to center left spectrum. And I think that's right for a guy like me versus the people that are going to continue to pander to the progressives and the radical left of the party. And that's going to be everybody else that's running.
But my question is, what if the Democratic Party now is actually only comprised of the radical left, whereas like the people who used to be the center have left the Democratic Party, are Republicans, or have become independents? What if the only people that are left in the Democratic Party in Rhode Island are those progressive, far left people?
Well, I don't think that they are, but the answer is I don't have the statistics. But if they're the ones that show up to vote, well, then I'm not going to win the primary, Ronnie. So I have to really reach out to. But there's
Right.
a lot of businessmen that don't want their taxes to go up that are Democrats. There's a lot of people again that have families and they're worried about education and worried about healthcare and they're worried about housing. It doesn't matter what party you're in, but the Democratic Party has been failing the people of Rhode Island because, again, there's so many surveys that show that we're laggards in education, all the things that matter. And I am the voice of reason. And they can make that leap because I think people will vote for the person. And now that I'm a Democrat, especially in the urban core, Providence, Rhode Island, our capital city, we're a majority city right now. And so, and you know what? You could give everybody $1 and they're not going to vote for a Republican on election day. So the answer is I'm here with my people and the people that I care about as well as the general population, because we're losing. If this country is going to be minority, majority in short order, and so many blacks and Latinos have been fed this socialist soup. And back in 1964, especially after Malcolm X left the Nation of Islam and Malcolm X went and did his Hajj and did his pilgrimage to Mecca, and one of the greatest black speeches in Black America was the ballot or the bullet that he did in 1964. He told us that we needed to be independent of the liberals, not from a standard of hate, but for a standard to be successful. And we need self-help. We need to and we didn't listen. And so we have so many people that are on what I call the liberal Democrat umbilical cord. And then there's so many black, you can call them leaders, but some of them are talking heads on TV. Some of them are opportunists, but we don't have those black and Latino leaders that are speaking up for the people, because most of them are tied, fed, supported. They're nonprofits by the Democratic Party. And so in a Democratic state, there's just still so much poverty. Our education system is failing. So we need a Democrat that's going to hold the Democrats' feet to the fire. They made the promises. They come around on voting day. Now it's time to perform. And so Alan Waters for Congress, Democrat, Blue Dog Democrat. I'm going to hold their feet to the fire for the people, not just in the urban communities, but all over Rhode Island, and of course, America, because, as I said, with all this debt, one of the things I found, I think sometimes the Republicans talk well, but they're really not, they're not strong, maybe with the unity that they need to really make things happen. Mm-hmm. And so,
right.
Now you have a nice voice. I am a nice voice, and I can see this going to work just fine.
Right. Well, you certainly do have a very nice voice, Alan. Let me just add that. But so you mentioned that the Democratic Party hasn't really necessarily been very welcoming towards you since you've joined or switched parties, right?
Now, but I also haven't reached out to them.
Right.
This is a grassroots thing. The elites, the people that are controlling the Democratic establishment of the state of Rhode Island, I already know that I'm not welcome. Because, for instance, I'm just not a bought and paid for Democrat. I'm an independently minded person with great values. And as I said, the classical liberal values, right? We talked about freedom, right, limited government, a strong national defense, private property rights, things like that, things that really matter to a lot of people. I think it'll be refreshing. Oh, he's not a Democrat, he's a Republican. No, I'm not a Republican. I'm an American that happens to be a Democrat.
Right. Now, speaking of the Republicans, right? Since you switched parties, have you gotten like any hate mail from the Rhode Island GOP?
Well, it's not that big. I'm not quite sure, knowing what I believe happened, that they would really want to engage. Right now, the Republican Party in Rhode Island has to find itself. They had maybe 5 people running in statewide or office races from governor to lieutenant. They had a nice slate, and they lost across the board, like in a lot of places in this country. The red wave that was supposed to come, and then the real star, which was Mayor Alan Fung, who was running for Congress in District 2. A lot of money was raised for him. He raised his own, and they lost.
Race, right? Yeah, it was a very close race.
It was close, but you know what? This is a blood sport. It's win-lose, right? This isn't horseshoes.
Right. But have you gotten any negative feedback from Republicans or from your former supporters who have expressed any sort of disappointment or anything?
Yes. I'm very open. One of the things that the voters and the people of Rhode Island get when they even consider Alan Waters is that they get transparency, and refreshingly, they get real truth. Like, I don't like to sugarcoat anything, but I like to speak that way. So the answer is, oh, sure, on my social media, people will say that they're disappointed. I wouldn't say that. I get people that are unnecessarily rude or whatever. But once I tell them where I'm coming from and what the opportunity is, it's better to have someone that shares some or most of your values, even if they're a Democrat, because we need that type of person, not only for the state of Rhode Island, but in this country. Because, again, as a Blue Dog Democrat, when appropriate, I will cross the aisle and work with my Republicans on the up, because we need to get things done. We're too polarized by ideology, and everyone's afraid. Alan Waters is not afraid.
Okay. Now, do you find it any different as you campaign for the Democratic vote as opposed to the Republican vote? Is there any difference in your messaging, in your style? Like, are the two different types of voters very, very different?
The answer is, I haven't really got on the ground yet. I was the first candidate registered with the Federal Election Commission.
Okay.
But I haven't started to, like, for instance, recently I got my new business cards and my letterhead, and I just I got a text or call that my donation envelopes are ready. So I'm about ready to start hitting the streets and trying to get ahead of the others. There is one person that could come in and put a lot of her own money in the race. That's Helena Bonanno Folks. She's an ex-CVS, as in CVS drugstores, executive, and she ran for governor in the Democratic Party last year and lost. But she has a nice brand name, and she can self-fund. So I want to get ahead of those people. But again, whether it's someone who's worked in the General Assembly, like the Speaker of the House in Rhode Island, the rumor is he's going to run. The Lieutenant Governor, Sabina Matos, a Dominican, she's expected to announce on Monday. But all these people are going to be left-leaning, progressive, they're pandering. And I can just stand in my own spot and say, you got that, but it's time for this. So I'll do fine.
Okay. Now, what about your platform? Is it going to be the same as last year, or will it have to tweak it a little bit to suit the Democratic base?
The answer is, it's only going to be tweaked a little. I'm just going to continue to work with my classical liberal issues, and that's it. I'm looking at my card right now that's in front of me. Term limits, free enterprise. I believe in federal tax reform. Just this year, as soon as McCarthy, they said he had to make some deals with more right-wing members of the Republican Party.
Right.
And what do they talk about? They support the Fair Tax Act. I've been supporting the Fair Tax for 7 years. That's HR 25. And in a nutshell, Ronnie, that replaces the federal income tax. So let's say it real fast. Replace the federal income tax with a national 23% retail sales tax on only new goods and services. There's 0% tax on used goods. Services are always taxed. Rebate that tax in advance to all American families up to the poverty level so it doesn't hurt the poor. So immediately, where everybody's going to get a refund. And what does that mean? My family's going to get about $792 a month, which buys us about $3,400 of goods and services tax-free. But most importantly, if we're replacing the 70,000 page IRS code with only about 135 pages of a consumption tax, we're going to close the IRS, Ronnie. That's what it's all about. And if it works, repeal the 16th Amendment, which was enacted in 1913 along with the Federal Reserve Bank. Mm-hmm. A lot of people, you can't do that. Well, the answer is yes, we can. Right. And that would be great. Imagine no more income tax personally on your business, Ronnie, etc. And basically at the 23%, what's going to happen? That just means that's a kind of a revenue neutral. And I also believe if that doesn't even happen, maybe we should look at a flat income tax or something. But certainly, we have to stop this tax, borrow, and spend that the Democrats are doing and a lot of the Republicans are going along with. We're burying this country, and we're going to take it over the cliff. We need people like Alan Waters for Congress that says, no mas, no more.
No mas. Okay. Now, Alan, suppose you run in. Well, so I'm just playing, devil's advocate, right?
Oh yes, absolutely.
Let's say you run, right?
Yes.
You don't win the primary, right?
Yes.
Where do you go from here? Because would you make a further attempt at future office? Because if you were to go back to the Republican Party, I don't think they would take you, right?
Oh no, I'm not going to go back to the Republican Party.
Right,
Ronnie, I ran. I am not a perennial. Sometimes when you keep doing things, people might think that. The guy that keeps running and losing and never really has a chance. Historically, there's a lot of people that spend a whole lot of money and never. Maybe they do it twice, so they're not called a perennial.
Right.
But I knew that if I continued to stay a Republican in the state of Rhode Island, based on the nature of the party and what's been going on, and the fact that, wait a minute, like I said, I was carrying the water. I was up front. Matter of fact, in Rhode Island, we won the coin flip. I literally was on the top of the ballot twice. Right. But when they can't say your guy's name, well, that's something. But back to the point, I started off running for United States Senate. If I do well enough or surprisingly well, even on a loss, but that just means that people like me and my brand has expanded, especially in the Democrat and independent realm, then the answer is that I would continue to run for U.S. Senate. I just paused it because what a great opportunity. But I was already registered as a candidate, Democrat candidate, to run for U.S. Senate in 2024. Just keep going.
Okay, so if you were to continue to run for U.S. Senate, you would continue to run as a Democrat, right?
I would never run as an independent. There are no independents in the House of Representatives. There's only two independents and the Senate, of course, Bernie Sanders and King. And Bernie Sanders was in a special spot because mayor of Burlington, Vermont, and other things. However, that worked for him. But you have to pick a party, and if you're not all the way in, you got to hold your nose and pick a party because you need that party structure, etc. But and hopefully there'll be some conservative Democrats, some Republicans out there that want to invest in a guy like me, especially in an open race. So I'm keeping my fingers crossed. But if I don't bomb out, so to speak, and say, you know what, I just got 0 or 5% or just no attention in the Democratic Party, then, it's time for me to do other things with my life. You said I was a lifelong Republican, but I joined the Republican Party in 2013, September, the Cape Cod Republican Club, because I was just thinking that even as a black man, I just felt that the conservative values, the moderately conservative values, matched me the most. And I was looking for a place where I could express myself, because I was really an independent and a family man that was too busy to do this. So this has been a sacrifice. It's been a labor of love, but I have a passion, because again, if we don't try to turn around not just the Democratic Party, but some of some of the people that are kind of caught, they're trapped, I believe, such as traditional African Americans and people in the African diaspora, and Latinos and Hispanics. There's a lot of people out there, like, even the Hispanics. They're not just Cubans that vote more conservative, but maybe they're still not ready to vote Republican, but they'll be ready to vote for a guy like me with a tan face that comes from 4 generations deep. Well, my family's been in Rhode Island, at least some of them, since the 1800s.
Okay, great. Now, Alan Waters, we have your website here. I'm going to throw it up. www.alanrwaters.com. The R stands for Rodney, right?
That's right. And that's ALLEN, alanrwaters.com. The R stands for Rodney. And if you were family, you'd be calling me Rodney, because that's what my mother used to call me. But it's Alan Waters to everybody else.
Alrighty. Well, Alan, we wish you the best of luck, and please do keep us updated on the state of your race. And if I heard correctly, right, like if you don't win the primary, you will continue your run for U.S. Senate, right? And
Absolutely, I will.
And you will continue that run as a Democrat. The U.S. Senate seat that you are seeking, is that going to become an open seat?
Well, U.S. Senator Sheldon Whitehouse is up for re-election in 2024, and that was my original intent. I just thought that more of a centrist approach, such as I take, versus his very left approach. He's just a traditional old line white liberal, and I just think that if people want something different, they'll get something different with Alan Waters.
Okay. So when you were originally running for U.S. Senate, you were running as a Democrat you were going to challenge him in the primary.
Yes, absolutely. Ronnie, I switched parties, and I just didn't troll. I kind of let the chairman of the Republican Party know that I was thinking 3 different things. I've ran twice in Rhode Island. I've also ran in Massachusetts. I haven't won. It's time as a Republican perhaps to hang up my cleats. Maybe I would have helped the Providence, Rhode Island GOP expand, because I like to help. And, I just believe in those conservative, moderately conservative things.
Right.
But then I also realized that in a city, these cities are voting a majority Democrat, like Providence, maybe 95%. And I'm saying that not just as a Democratic candidate for the whole district or for the U.S. Senate, the whole state, we need leaders that help to, like I said, hold the Democratic, especially in a blue state, to hold their feet to the fire and help move that needle, because there's a lot of people, especially I like to say a lot of males. The Democratic Party, when I look at it, they're a go-girl party. They support women, they support LGBTQ, but there's a lot of, from white to black, there's a lot of young men that are marginalized, that they're not given the hope. It's about everybody else but them. But we need strong men with good values, that if they're family men, that are going to be able to do those type of things. And quite frankly, in this world today, you never know when the next war comes up. We need people that have their head ready with the USA flag and putting America first and putting themselves out there, because we have a lot of enemies in the world from within and from outside.
Okay. No, I just want to make clear. So when you were running for U.S. Senate, you had already switched parties?
Yes. I'm sorry. I changed parties in Rhode Island officially on December 1st, 2022.
Oh, wow. Okay.
After I thought about what happened, I thought about the lack of support that the party, and they'll say, well, I wasn't the best candidate. Well, why wasn't I? Or he didn't raise any money. But I can only imagine if the RNC said, there's a nice family man, good values. He's running against David Cicilline. You should take a look, see if he's your type of guy. And the answer is but they wrote me off. And so, but I know that there's no other issue. So that's one of the problems that I see with the Republican Party. I like to say they're too persnickety.
Right. Now, when you officially left the party, right? Like when you made that decision in your mind to consciously leave the party, was it a hard decision? Like, was it something that you had to discuss with your family first, or was it in your mind a pretty easy thing to do?
The only thing that wasn't easy about it was leaving some good people or switching on some good people that supported me. They really came in all the way and was trying to help me win. And it was very hard for them to understand, why would I do such a thing? Because many people think of it shirts and skins. I'm not a shirts and skins type of guy. I'm not because I it's almost somewhat abstract where I look at the Democrats and the Republicans and I look at them, you see their opportunists, you see the traitors, you see the people that are selling America down the river, and they're on both sides of the aisle.
Oh, yeah.
So I'm an America first kind of guy. I really look at that. However, you get back to it, you still need a party to win. But will I be a good Democrat? I'll be a doggone good Democrat, because as long as I stick with my values, that's the values that I have are not distant from the values that the Democrats used to have until they decided to go through another progressive wave. They went through this before in the 1930s, and sooner or later, progressivism fails. But what happens is they hurt a lot of people along the way. And so I just think that there are every voter, Democrats, Independents, Republicans, Libertarians, that want to have someone who has strong values, that can articulate clearly of the direction that things I believe in, but also the direction of this country. It was just recently that I went to a hearing at the Rhode Island State House of Representatives. It was just a week or two ago, where I was a witness for the Convention of States, because if we don't get term limits, if we don't have a ballot budget to pass the budget amendment to the Constitution, Ronnie, if we don't start to bring some of the power back to the states, because there's too many quasi-legislative functions for non-U.S. representatives and non-U.S. senators that have a lot of effect in our life. We need that. Now, the odds on this is not a constitutional convention, but a convention of states. And if they stay focused on those things, that would be great. But at least in principle, I support that, because it's about the people and not about these elites on both sides of the aisle,
Okay. Now, I guess many Democrats will be asking you, as a first test of your allegiance to the Democratic Party, right?
Yes.
When it comes to 2024, would you be willing to vote for Joe Biden if he were to run again?
My hope is that Joe Manchin jumps in and runs. But no, I think it's time to have another solid Democrat, if that's the person that's going to win the votes. And so this right now, it was just an article in the Wall Street Journal today or yesterday in the opinion section, look it up, about Joe Manchin and where he might fit. And the answer is he fits in the same place I fit. There's just so many independents and others, traditional Democrats, perhaps the Republicans that, maybe they've just had enough of Donald Trump. I'm not saying anything bad about Donald Trump. I'm saying there's just those people out there, and they're looking for something different. And those are the same people that will vote for me in Rhode Island.
Well, for Joe Manchin, I mean, he himself faces a tough re-election in 2024 for his Senate seat, right?
Yes.
But, if the nominee for the Democrats is again Joe Biden, and let's say the nominee for the Republicans is, let's say, Donald Trump, right? If it's a Trump versus Biden match again in 2024, who would you be more inclined to vote for then?
I'd rather not say, because I would just be sitting that one out.
Okay, fair enough. All right, Alan Waters.
Yes,
candidate for U.S. Congress in Rhode Island, District 1.
That's right. Again, open seat.
Yep. Open seat. I'm throwing up your website here, alanrwaters.com. Thank you once again for coming on Real Talk with Ronnie. It's been a pleasure to catch up, and we hope you come on again very soon, okay?
Ronnie, I really appreciate it. Thank you very much. It's always a pleasure.
All right. Thank you, Alan. Thanks for watching and listening to Real Talk with Ronnie. Check out our show at realtalkronnie.com.